What is up, everybody? It is Rob and Donald. This is Nerdin' Out Sports, and we are about to break down all the news. Giants' 53-man roster initially was announced. Cuts were made, some surprise cuts, some interesting players making it over others. We're going to break all down right here. So, Donald, obviously, the big news that came out yesterday Blake Martinez cut. Surprise move? Were you expecting it? Was it time to move on? What do you think about that?
It's kind of both. He wasn't a scheme fit for Martindale. You could see the fact that he didn't get the team captaincy nod, which he was the team captain last year. That's got to be kind of typical for him to stomach. 2 years ago, he was almost an All-Pro middle linebacker, 151 tackles. It's it's going to be difficult for him. So yeah, you can see the writing on the wall, and especially when we renegotiated his contract to get his salary cap number down from, I believe it was like they saved about $6 million on the cap this year by getting him down to the league minimum. So that's you could see the writing on the wall that he wasn't part of the plans long term. He was sharing time with Beavers during camp and preseason. But even still, the timing I find shocking.
Yeah, when they
Yeah,
announced all the captains, that was interesting because there was like 10 captains,
yeah,
and none of them were Blake Martinez. And I saw Julian Love got it. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting because
hmm
Martinez has been that captain the last couple of years in the defense, and usually the middle linebacker, who then the Mike guy, he's going to get it. Obviously, that's going to be McKinney this year. So that was a little interesting to me when they didn't give him the captain status this year. And I'm thinking he's coming off the injury. This new regime didn't sign him, and it was kind of in the back of my mind, like, would they potentially move him for like a late round pick or just let him go to free the money? And sure enough, they let him go. I liked Blake Martinez, I really did, but you got to understand this team has no cap. They have to make money however they can because of the situation that the previous regime put Joe Schoen and company in. So they have to make moves that are going to hurt. And unfortunately, Blake Martinez was one of those moves. And I think he's going to find somewhere else to go, and he'll be pretty good. Maybe he goes to Las Vegas, reunite with Patrick Graham. So that's a possibility. I hope he finds success because I really like Blake Martinez. He was great for us a couple of years ago. It's a shame he got hurt last year because we desperately needed him on that defense. So I just hope he finds success wherever he is. And it's kind of telling about what Gettleman and company did to this team that we
hmm
have to make cuts like this because our linebacking core was already thin, and now it's even thinner with Blake going down.
Another thing, he wasn't the signal caller when
Yeah.
he was announced that Xavier McKinney was going to be the signal caller. I think that I think that was basically again writing on the wall. But my question to you is: the timing is very strange. If surely they would have known that he wasn't a scheme fit months ago. Why did they wait till everything's pretty much finished in terms of acquiring players to cut him? I mean, also you're not saving anything by cutting him. I believe it saved about $200,000, but then they ended up picking up Tyre Phillips anyway. So with that money, so it's a strange one. Like they could have saved $6 million by cutting him pre renegotiation. Cut him, save $6 million, and then you would have been able to acquire a linebacker that is a scheme fit, or or attack some of the areas where we desperately needed some help, like tight end or outside corner. Very surprised at the timing of it, and it is jaw dropping for me. And I'm a big Blake Martinez fan. I can't envisage a scenario where he couldn't have at least stuck around for a couple of weeks just to see how we are. And if indeed we didn't necessarily need him, then you can cut him. But as of right now, I didn't really like it.
Yeah, I think there was a report that came out yesterday that I don't remember who it was from. It might have been Stapleton that said that it was mutual,
Yeah.
that both sides agreed to this, that maybe they just really wanted to see if he'd be a scheme fit, but coming back from the injury, maybe he's not 100%, and maybe it's just too fast for him. I don't know. Maybe Wink's defense might just be a little bit too much for him to handle at this point in his career, coming back from a serious injury. Like I said, and I'm echoing what you said, I liked him, and a lot of Giants fans did. He really helped us out of a position that we needed a couple of years ago when we signed him. And, if not for the injury, he's probably with us still this year, making a lot more money, but he'd still be here. And we'd have a pretty solid middle linebacker. And like I said, now it's going to be a thinned out group. It's already thin. It's thinned out now with Blake gone. And the pressure is on guys like McFadden and Tay Crowder and Calitro, who made the team. These guys are going to have to step up because our middle linebacker situation has been very, very bad since the Antonio Pierce days have ended. And we've been searching and searching and searching for that stout middle linebacker. Whatever defense you run, you need at least one good one. We're hoping Tay Crowder can be that guy. We were hoping it'd be Beavers before he got hurt. But, yeah, we're just hoping these young guys can step up, but that's part of a rebuild. These are the kind of moves you have to make, and it goes back to the cap. I know we don't save a lot of money from it, but the Giants had to make moves. They had to add another lineman. They had to do whatever they can, and every single cent counts for this team right now because of what Dave Gettleman and company did. Joe Schoen really had no choice. Like, restructures are going to be coming soon as well. He's mentioned that. They have to do these things because they just don't have the funds. So Blake Martinez was an unfortunate casualty of a cap situation that this new regime had to inherit. So whenever people say you got to give this new regime time, they're right, because you can't expect changes to happen year one. I'm not expecting much this year. Do I think they'll win some games? Yeah, but you look at this roster, I see a lot of potential for the future.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a lot of success right now, and we're going to have a lot of growing pains. And cutting a veteran like Blake Martinez is kind of an example of what this regime will have to do to get this team to where they want it to be in the hopefully not too distant future.
So possible replacements for Blake Martinez on the current roster. Tay Crowder obviously will get the first nod. Then, as you mentioned, Calitro, he really balled out against the Jets. I'm glad that he's back. But he's never really had a serious NFL career. He's kicked around a bunch of practice squads and released a couple times. But maybe he's found a home for himself here in Jersey. So he'll get some time. McFadden will get some time. And Carter Coughlin. Again, he's more of an outside linebacker, but he can still play inside. But again, these are all dudes that are kind of 6th, 7th round kind of caliber names. We'll see. We'll see where we're at with it. Hopefully someone takes the job and runs with it. Looks like T. Crowder will get the first stab at the job.
You're actually right, because these are all like Tay Crowder was the last pick in the draft. McFadden, late round pick. Carter Coughlin was a late pick. Cam Brown was a late pick. Calitro, I don't know when he was taken. He might have been undrafted. This is a very interesting group when you think about it in that aspect, because if someone does take that proverbial ball and run with it, I mean, it's going to be kind of one of those surprise situations. Tay Crowder had a good year last year. He's a big tackler. Wasn't great, but, in terms of tackle numbers, he did okay for a guy that was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. So, I mean, maybe one of these guys takes over. I know we were both really excited about Beavers as well, and unfortunately he's gone down. So I think things would have been different had he been healthy. We'd have a little more hope in this group, but it's just going to be wait and see. We'll see how they do, because they're going to have a test week 1 because they got Derrick Henry coming in. So man, I'm actually really excited to see if any of these guys kind of take off if it's Tay Crowder, if it's Micah McFadden. I think those are your top two at this point when you go into the season.
And that's what it all comes down to. I mean, we can obviously discuss the fact that Blake was shockingly cut. I still think it could have been done far before this. But what it all comes down to is they're building for the future. He wasn't a fit long term, and it turns out he wasn't even a fit short term either. I think Shane is clearly signaling to us that he's looking a couple of years down the line. Obviously, we hope that we can be competitive this year, but a lot of it is to gain flexibility for next year. The moves that they're making is very much with an eye to attacking free agency next year and building slowly. Because I was reading a scout, and the scout said that the mess that Gettleman left the Giants in is going to take Joe Schoen about 3 years to turn it around. Is that much of a mess? The cap situation that we're in is absolutely unbelievable for any kind of professional ball club. Run to the ground as much as Gettleman ran it to the ground is actually truly astounding. He literally ran it to the ground. I've never quite seen anything quite like it. In all my years of covering sports, I've never ever seen it. Like, he just literally just destroyed our cap situation and continued to make it worse and worse and worse. It was a snowball situation where he just compounded mistakes by making all new ones. So no one can quite believe that he seemed to just walk away with a smile on his face, and he got a big celebration from the Giants after what he did to the organization. So going back to Shane, although I don't totally agree with a lot of the things, like some of the things he's done, like I would have found a way to make better use of cutting Bradbury. Why they didn't do it earlier in order to allow them time. Did I love that they didn't select an outside corner in the draft? No, I wanted that. I think we could have selected Booth. I think Cordell Flott is an undersized slot guy. He got lit up in preseason. But, I mean, these are all kind of criticisms that are kind of minor at the end of the day, because the main story is he needs to try and fix some of these mistakes. It all can't be done this offseason. We didn't have any cap space. He couldn't make any signings in free agency apart from Glowinski and Tyrod Taylor as the main guys. It's all with an eye to building for the future. And we just have to be patient, Giant fans. It's not easy, because I want us to win just as much as I know the fans, all our fans want us to do, but we just have to be patient.
Yeah, at least they know what direction they want to go in. They didn't come in here and say, oh, yeah, this is a team that can win 10 games and win a division. They didn't come in here and say that. They knew from day one this is going to be a process, so they brought in a guy who's ready to start that process in Joe Schoen. They brought in Brown from Philly, former assistant GM, now to be the assistant GM with us. So they're bringing in a lot of different faces to an organization that needed it, the new coach, the new coordinators, a lot of new coordinators, a lot of new coaches out there. This is a complete rebuild. It's a team that needed it, and patience is the key. The old regime came in here thinking we could still win with an aging Eli Manning, and as much as I love Eli, it was just not the right decision, and they completely botched it from day one. This new regime came in and said, we have to tear this thing down and build it back up, and it's going to be a process, and it's not going to be easy to watch. There's going to be a lot of games where you go, man, they don't look good, but you have to just use a term. I guess you have to use a term that's used in all sports now, is trust the process, and just hope that in the not too distant future, that's the best I can say, is at least 2 years from now, that they're competitive, they're winning games, and they're putting themselves in the conversation as a sleeper team. I still think they'll win games this year. Don't get me wrong. They're going to win some games they probably shouldn't.
I think so too.
But there are going to be games where they look like a team that's rebuilding. So it's just, you have to expect it, and you can't get worked up about it, because you just have to. We got what we wanted, right? We got the guys we wanted. We got the GM, the coach. We got it all. We just have to be patient with the process. But let's move on to some of the moves that were made before we get into the actual
Break it down.
roster. The Giants did add Tony Jefferson to the practice squad, which is interesting.
No-brainer.
He'll make the team at some point. The fact that he's on the practice squad is interesting to me. I thought he'd make the team right as they picked him up. Not the case, though, but
It's probably something to do with cap space. I wouldn't look too deeply into that.
yeah, he'll be there before week 1, I think. They also added Jason Penick from the Jets, a former 5th-round pick.
You've got some things to say about that.
Yeah, that is I like that move, but we'll let you lead that one off. And, of course, Ty Phillips, I don't know if it's Tyree. I'm going to assume it's Tyree. Tyree Phillips, another former Raven, coming in the Giants, adding him to the offensive line depth because that's another thin position that we needed some help at. So we get another offensive lineman, a guy who can play guard and tackle. So there's some versatility there. A couple of defensive backs as well were added, Nick McLeod and Justin Lane. So they're adding some depth to the secondary and to the offensive line with some of these moves. But you want to talk about Penick.
Jack Anderson as well.
Yeah, Jack Anderson is another addition. A lot of moves.
Philadelphia Eagles.
So why don't you go ahead and talk about Mr. Jason Penick, former New York Jet 5th-round pick.
Well, I know that the Jets fan base were very disappointed that Penick was cut. So if that's any kind of indication, he balled out in camp and preseason. My colleague at the Boys in Big Apple, Luca, who's Jet content creator as well, he's a big fan of him. And he was disappointed that he was cut. I think a lot of fan base were as well. He really made a name for himself. He's a converted safety. He played corner at college and made a home for himself at safety, and he played pretty well. He played for the Jets last year and played some safety there for them last year, and he took that and ran with it. And in camp, I think it was more of a numbers game for him rather than anything to do with ability, because his ability is there. So I think that was a wise pickup from Joe Schoen and the Giants, because obviously they would have had firsthand look at him in the final preseason game, and also right through the joint practices that we held that prior week. So I think the Giants got some good inside knowledge on him. I like him. I think that he can be a versatile guy in the backfield, as in defensive back situation. So, we could be looking at sets where we'd have for instance, maybe Julian Love playing a little bit of corner, and then you could have Jefferson and Penick and McKinney in 3 safety sets. You could there's various ways in which you could do it. So I like the pickup. I think for me, that's probably the apart from Jefferson, which was a no-brainer, he had to be brought in. Veteran safety, Wink Martindale guy, ton of tackles in his career, sacks, interceptions, playmaker. This guy is going to help push on our young safeties. So I think he was a no-brainer. But of the other guys, I think he was my favorite pickup.
It says here that he played 38 snaps last year as a box safety, 41 in the slot, and 123 at free safety. So versatile, like you said. He played multiple positions. And when Jefferson does join the team and we get a healthy Dane Belton, you're going to see a lot of different looks, different guys out there, because we know McKinney can play all over the place. So he can drop to the box. He can play some slot. He can play outside. He can play free safety, strong safety. We know Julian Love can mix around. So adding a lot of secondary depth in the post-cuts scenario of the offseason definitely helps this team, because they didn't add anybody in the draft aside from Flott, and it was a very weak and thin part of our team. But now it's a little bit more full. There are a lot of these younger guys are going to hope to step up and get playing time in a team that needs it. Penick he wouldn't have gotten playing time for the Jets. Obviously, they let him go. But he's got an opportunity here with the rebuilding Giants team to maybe make a name for himself. So we'll see how it goes. I do like the signing as well, as the secondary needed the help. And I also like the Phillips move, because he could potentially start for us, because we don't know where our offensive line is going week 1.
He's a big dude.
Big dude. Yes. Struggled at tackle, though, early on, but he hasn't started a ton of games. He gave up a lot, like 5 sacks, I think, in 8 games in his first year. That number dropped a little bit last year, but in less games. I think he's played like 13 games, started 13 games in his career. So it's going to be interesting. He's kind of like Izudu in the fact that he can move around and play both tackle and guard. So it'll be interesting to see how they figure out that left guard position going into week 1.
Yeah, so he was drafted by the Ravens in the 3rd round in the 2020 draft. He beat out DJ Fluker for the starting tackle job, but then he got an ankle injury, and that kind of hurt him. He suffered a torn ACL, so he obviously had some injuries. So, but there was a reason why he was drafted that high in the 3rd round. He's 6'5". And 331 pounds is a big dude, and yeah, he can run a bit. His shuttle time is pretty strong. There's just some of his numbers there. I think he's a good pickup. Big guy. You can maybe play a little guard for us, a little bit of tackle at a pinch. We'll see how he recovers from obviously the injuries that he's had, because we'll see if that maybe plays a part. But that's probably why he was cut in the first place. But I think that was a smart pickup. The guy we got from the Eagles, Anderson, he's got some experience too. What do you think about the corners that we picked up? McLeod, for instance, another Bills dude. There's this theme here. A lot of Bills.
A lot of former Bills and a lot of former Ravens coming in. I really don't know if any of these guys are going to get significant playing time, because you think about it, Jackson, Holmes, Aaron Robinson, and Flott are probably your top 4. I mean, they're not the greatest names that you throw out there, but because we discussed that Julian Love can play some corner, Penick can also play corner if need be. I don't know how much playing time these guys will get, but I do like that. Obviously, Joe Schoen had an inside track to some of these guys because he's with Buffalo. So at this point, I'll take anybody that can fill out this depth chart, because it was just so thin post Bradbury. After Adoree Jackson, you're kind of looking at it like, well, Holmes is a slot guy. Can Robinson handle that outside corner? We know Flott is going to be a slot guy. So it's just, if any of these guys can play outside corner, I think it's a good move. But again, these are waiver wire acquisitions. You can't look at them and be like, oh, there's the next James Bradbury. That's the replacement right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think McLeod, he's a big tackler. He can play the run really well, but he does struggle in coverage. But the fact he played corner this preseason, had 53 snaps at his position, 12 in the slot, 22 at free safety, 21 in the box. I mean, he's a versatile name there, Nick McLeod. Justin Lane, guy from Pittsburgh, former 3rd-round pick in 2019. Again, somebody who really struggles in coverage. So that's not great that we've acquired dudes that struggle in coverage, because that's something that we really need for Wake Martindale's system to really translate. We've got Adoree Jackson, who's tremendous man-to-man guy. On the other side, Aaron Robinson has been inconsistent. It's a play-by-play basis with him. Some plays he shuts it down, does a great job, but sometimes he looks a little step slow, and he allows the receiver to beat him. So he's kind of inconsistent a little bit. And then after Robinson, it's a massive drop-off. We don't really have an outside corner guy after them. So it's going to be a mix and match situation. I hope that we play Julian Love some corner, because I think we'll need him to. Because, I think Darnay Holmes is going to be a really good slot corner. But, outside corner is going to be a real question. And I'm really surprised the Giants didn't address it more in the offseason. I keep beating that drum, but I'm very surprised about it.
Yeah, it was interesting that they didn't draft anybody because I feel like they had multiple opportunities to do so in
Yeah,
this past draft and in free agency as well. There were some guys they could have potentially looked at, but again, they don't have money, so signing anybody
that's
it would
right.
have been difficult. So, this is what you have to do. You kind of have to go to the scrap heap to pick up guys and hope they stick. Um, Maybe someone is kind of like Isaac Yadam, who starts off slow but then picks it up as the season goes on.
Yeah,
That's what he was for us a couple of years ago. So I mean, at this point, it's just wait and see with everybody. If they step up, great. If not, they're waiver wire pickups. You can't expect anything more out of these guys, and just try to do what you can. And hopefully, they don't get burnt every single play. I mean, it's just the expectations have to be low with these guys and with this team. They have to be low in terms of expectations. You can't expect everybody they pick up to come out there and just ball out and be like, I see what you missed when you cut them. Like, that's why we picked them up. You have to keep your expectations tempered and just hope for the best, but kind of prepare for, I guess, I don't want to say the worst, but prepare for meh. I guess the way I'll put it. Keep your expectations low is the easiest way to put it. But let's look at the roster itself. No surprises at the quarterback position. Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, no surprises there. I thought maybe they'd carry the third quarterback, but they needed more spots open for other positions. So Davis Webb on the practice squad. Not worried about that. I think we'll be fine if we have to use Tyrod Taylor. He's much, much better than what we had in the past. Of course, last year with Mike Glennon. So
yeah.
perfectly fine with that.
He didn't have a great preseason, struggling preseason, but he's a great scheme fit, and he can easily take this starting role at some point if Jones struggles. He's kind of a 1B. He's a dude that can step in and be a solid starter if required. But Jones obviously has the upside. You want to see what we have with Jones. He's certainly getting better as the weeks have gone on. But yeah, I mean, I like the Taylor pickup. Doesn't have a great arm, but everything else, he gets that ball out quick. He gets that offense moving down the field. I don't have a problem with him at all. I actually quite like him. I think it was a good signing. Maybe a little bit more than you maybe wanted to pay, but the Giants were kind of desperate to get a solid backup quarterback for Daniel Jones, so they did get that. And there's a very decent chance that by midseason he could be getting some snaps as the starting quarterback. You never know. We'll see how things turn out. But yeah, I think we'll be fine. And as I say, Daniel Jones is getting better. He's looked pretty good in camp these last couple of weeks.
Hopefully that continues. That's a continuing trend going into the regular season. If this is his time. If there was any time for DJ to ball out, here it is, because you're hitting free agency after this year. So if you want that new contract, you got to ball out. So we'll see what he does. Running back room: Barkley, Matt Breida, Antonio Williams, Gary Brightwell, and Sandro Platzgummer. Interesting name there at the end, but they're carrying 4 running backs, and obviously Platzgummer more going to be that fullback, I'm assuming.
I would have gone Corbin, but you might be right that Platzgummer plays fullback. But I would have gone Corbin. I like Corbin. I think he had a really good preseason. Little surprised that he didn't make the 53. I think he'll be some special teams units that work for Platzgummer. But yeah, it's all about Saquon, because Breida's been hurt for a lot. He's not really been used all that often. Not had many carries at all. I liked a lot of what I saw from Antonio Williams. I think he played really well in short spurts. So, but it all comes down to Saquon Barkley, and I'm expecting big things from Saquon. He looks like he's going to be a really good scheme fit, and I think the Giants are going to use him in a lot of roles in the backfield as a catching, as a receiving running back as well, and he looks like he's hitting the hole better and more efficiently. He doesn't look all that afraid of contact, which he did last year, so that might be a good sign that you might see the old Saquon. I certainly hope so, because I've got a ton of fantasy teams with him in it. So he better.
He's also on a contract year. So, look, the last couple of years have been lost, obviously, due to injury. And this is big for Saquon. If he is back to rookie year Saquon, which is certainly a possibility because we know he's a freak athlete, he's a monster, and he's certainly capable of doing it, this offense will surprise some people if we have a healthy and effective Saquon Barkley, because Daboll likes to use the running backs. So Saquon Barkley fits that mold perfectly as a player that Daboll likes to use. He can receive out of the backfield, he can make guys miss, and he can run like a monster. So Saquon Barkley, he's the guy that's going to make this offense go. And yeah, this running back situation, it's all based on him. If he performs well, we're not going to have to worry about who's behind him. They'll just get a couple of carries here and there, but it's all we're going to revolve around Saquon. Big expectations for him. If there's anybody on this roster I got big expectations for, at least offensively, Saquon is at the top of that list. Now, the receivers, Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson, no surprises there. But it gets interesting after that because you have Slayton, who everyone thought was gone, but here he's still around, Richie James, and David Sills. So he thinks Slayton eventually gets moved, or maybe they give him a shot.
Well, the thing with the problem with the receivers is very similar to the problem at corner. Don't have any outside guys. Look at our outside guys. Golladay, Toney maybe, but again, he's also a kind of a gadget slot guy too. So is Wan'Dale Robinson. Outside receivers, probably looking at Slayton. That's probably why he's still hanging around. Possibly we trade him. It certainly would be beneficial to our cap if we did trade him. But yeah, listen, it's a little bit of a concern, the wide receiver spot right now. Toney needs to really ball out this year. He needs to prove that he's healthy too, because he's not really had an extended run where he's been injury free. And Wan'Dale Robinson, I don't quite know. Like I was underwhelmed by him through camp and preseason. He looked undersized, and I think the Giants struggled to carve a role from him. He looks like just a straight up gadget guy. A couple of runs, one or two catches here and there, but nothing. He's not really stood out to me. You don't want to make big sweeping judgments, obviously, but I can only go by what I've seen. And again, there was other receivers that I would have targeted ahead of him. But I think that the Giants want him to be an Isaiah McKenzie type, because Shane liked him in Buffalo, Isaiah McKenzie, and I think he wanted someone who's a similar scheme fit for Daboll's offense. So it's what it all comes down to. But again, we don't really have too much on the outside. Golladay, but he's really struggling to get any separation whatsoever. And I don't really know what Galladay's going to show up, because he's not shown up at all since signing. So, yeah, I've got legitimate concerns at receiver. At the bottom end of the depth chart, I feel okay about. Like, I like Sills. I think Sills and Daniel Jones have a really good chemistry. And Richie James had an excellent camp in preseason, so they more than earned their spot. Disappointed Bachman didn't make it. I really like Bachman. Bachman actually led receivers in spring training and I thought he more than earned a spot in the Giant depth chart. So it sucks that he didn't make it. But there's a lot of questions. There's talent, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of questions. We'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's going to be based off of health, because Golladay, Shepard, Kadarius Toney, Rich, it's all injury prone at the top of that. So you really just have to go ahead and hope that they stay healthy. What is up, Luca, the Jets fan of the Twins, of course, the boys in the Big Apple. Donald is on that podcast. Luca is 1/3 of that group with his brother Alex. He is the Giants fan of the Twins. They are the boys in the Big Apple. Big Blue in the Bronx, and of course, Luca also do the Twin Bill on NYY News. So Yeah.
Look, we were talking about the safety that we got from the Jets, and we were saying that you're pretty high on him. You want to send a quick comment in the chat what you think about his role with the Giants moving forward.
And while he does that, let's talk about this tight end group because we got Bellinger, Chris Mayarick, and Tanner Hudson. I mean, Ricky Seals-Jones was signed and he was cut. Obviously, he's still hurt. Who knows how long he'll be out? But yeah, I guess Alex found out where he was because he was in witness protection for a while, and we know that Ricky Seals-Jones is gone. So this is another group of players that are young. Bellinger is a guy that a lot of people have high expectations for. I'm excited to see him play because I like the pick, but I also like Tanner Hudson. So this could be one of those groups that surprises you, I think.
Oh, really? So you have a little bit of hope with this tight end spot?
I really like Bellinger. When I saw his tape, I was seeing a lot of Kevin Boss type stuff, and I really liked because when I watched Eli Manning play, he always had a good connection with his tight end, no matter who it was.
100%.
When he started off, it was Shockey. Then it was Boss. And then when they moved on from Boss, he had Jake Ballard, who was making big plays. He had Bear Pasco doing things for him, Martellus Bennett. He always found a way to get the tight end involved. And I really think that Bellinger can be that guy for Daniel Jones because they haven't really had it. Evan Ingram wasn't that guy. He couldn't hold on to the football. And then we tried Kyle Rudolph, but, that didn't work out. So I really, really think that Bellinger can be that kind of, I guess, safety net on this offense for Daniel Jones. If any of these receivers are not open or anything like that, you can always get into the tight end. Daniel Bellinger can be that guy, similar to what Kevin Boss was for Eli Manning.
That's a lot of expectations, though, for a rookie. But, I mean, I am impressed by him. He's certainly going to be our number one tight end. The Ricky Seals-Jones signing was a disaster. It's quite amazing how much of a disaster that signing was. So you never saw him at all. And so injury settlement for him. And we're not really in a scenario where we have an experienced tight end group. Chris Myrick is a blocking tight end, but I think he does that job solidly. And Tanner Hudson, I think he's got an opportunity, but I don't love this tight end group. I think it really needs one more kind of experienced name. I thought we maybe would have made a run for OJ Howard. I know he's had some injury, but he's a dude that was legit. Experienced tight end with good big hands. As you say, you want a target for Daniel Jones. I'm not 100% sure whether we have enough targets for DJ. That's something that we should discuss. Is there enough targets for Daniel Jones to really be his best self?
First, what is up to TD? Said, what's up? Let's go Giants. Yes, sir. Let's go Giants.
Thank you, TD.
And thank you for popping in. In terms of the targets, I think Bellinger can kind of fly under the radar because if it's a big if people are healthy, you have Golladay out there. Even if he's not 100%, he's still a body that you have to pay attention to. Shepard is a surefire route runner. He's a guy that has good hands. He's kind of that first option, but you always have to be aware of Kadarius Toney when he's on the field. So teams might not be able to really game plan enough for Daniel Bellinger. And I'm not saying he's going to have Jeremy Shockey type numbers like what he had with Eli, but I think he could be one of those sneaky good under the radar players on this offense that you don't really look at. Because when you look at the receivers, you look at Saquon Barkley in the backfield, no one's going to really say, keep an eye on Daniel Bellinger. So I think at that point, he might be able to kind of sneak his way into some pretty good stat lines as the season goes on. I'm not saying from day one he's going to have like 10 catches, 100-something yards, and anything like that. I just think he's going to have a sneakily good, productive year because I liked him. I really did like the pick. That was one of those later round picks that I was like, that's a good one. Okay. So I have good expectations for him. I won't say through the roof, but I have good expectations for Daniel Bellinger. And I do think there are enough targets, but the biggest question is health.
That's right. Do you think Golladay is going to prove that he's healthy enough?
I mean, a lot of people want to put a lot of stock into his preseason and practice, which has not looked good. There's a lot of times where he has shown little to zero effort at no effort at all. But it is preseason, so I don't want to be like he's coming off of another procedure in the offseason. That's what just got revealed. So, I mean, I'm not too upset that he didn't go full throttle in training camp and practice because we know what he is. Everyone's talking about he gets no separation. Well, he never really did. He's a go up and get it receiver. He's going to use his ability to get up there and catch the ball. We know what he is, and that's why everyone wanted him last year because you needed that big receiver like what Plaxico was for Eli. Everyone said, well, there's DJ's Plaxico. So maybe he's saving it for the regular season because God forbid he gets hurt in the preseason when it doesn't matter or in training camp when it doesn't really matter for a player like him because you know what he is. He doesn't have to prove what he is at this point in his career. He's already done that, and that's why he got the big contract. So I'm not going to be like, this bum, we should have never signed him because everyone wanted him. Right? And now he's not taking it. He's taking it a little easy in camp and practice and all that. People are like, they should cut him. They're not going to cut him. They can't. There's
the problem
zero.
is they bid amongst themselves for Golladay, though. From what I read, there was other teams only were interested in giving a 1-year deal. So I think we bid amongst ourselves and then overpaid for Golladay somewhat because a lot of teams are very worried about his serious injury that he was recovering from, and I think that's playing a part as to why he seems to be quite slow in gaining separation from corners. But yeah, TD's got a question for us.
It says, where do you think Blake will end up out of the NFC East, or will he pull a Bradbury and stay in the division? I think he's going to Vegas. I think he's going to reunite with Patrick Graham and that pretty stacked Raiders team.
Think he goes back to Green Bay?
No, I said Las Vegas.
No, I'm just asking. Do you think there's a chance that maybe he goes back to Green Bay? That's where he really took off in his career. Maybe.
I mean, it's certainly a possibility. If this is maybe a last run for him, he's not old, but he's not like on the younger side either. So I think he gets a 1-year deal somewhere. Green Bay would definitely be a good choice for him. I just think he wants to go back with Patrick Graham. That's why he came here.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be a really good fit for him.
I think Patrick Graham's an excellent fit for him because he really excelled under Patrick Graham. As I say, 2 years ago, I would say he was a borderline All-Pro.
Yeah, he was very, very, very good for us a couple of years ago. And before with Green Bay, he was a big tackler, and that's what we needed in the middle. Lucas says Penick is also a hard hitter and can play outside corner and nickel back. So, yeah, he can. We need that. Has good turnaround ability, good foot speed, solid in the run game. Oh, good.
Thank you, Luca. Thanks so much, man. Yeah, that's what we're thinking. I mean, again, we need some depth at outside corner, but I think his best role will be at safety. I can see us playing 3 safety sets with him.
It says here that he also played in an aggressive defensive scheme in college, so Penick should fit seamlessly into your defense. Well, that's all I can hope for, right? It's all we can hope for is he just is a good fit. They see something in him that they like, and Wink Martindale's defense is certainly aggressive. So if he's used to it, bring him in. Bring me in all those guys that can just play all over the place, and maybe they're a good fit. Obviously, look, we know the DBs are going to be on the weaker side on this team. But if we're getting pressure the way we hopefully expect to with guys like Thibodeau and Aziz when they're healthy, then maybe it'll take a lot of pressure off these DBs. That's the best thing I can hope for.
Yeah, as I say, I really think that Shane and the front office did their homework on Penick. They saw him, the coaching staff saw him firsthand in the joint practices. And he balled out for the Jets in preseason, and a lot of Jet fans were very disappointed that Penick was cut. So, especially our friend Luca here. So, I mean, if that's something for Giant fans to maybe be a little excited about, I think it was an astute pickup, for sure. One of my favorites, I think.
I agree. Let's move on here to the offensive line. The usuals we know: Andrew Thomas, Evan Neal, Mark Lewinsky, John Feliciano, Joshua Izudu. Obviously, we just added Phillips. Bredesen made the team as well. Anderson, Devery Hamilton is also on at least this list. I still can't find an updated 53-man roster. But I'm not sure if Devery Hamilton is still there. But another one of those groups where you kind of look at it and just go, Thomas and Neal, they have to be elite.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously Tyre Phillips will be there around as a possible backup. You can fill in a little bit of tackle and guard. Anderson, we've mentioned, he's been added. He can add. Hamilton will likely start a left guard in week 1, according to Luca.
That'd be interesting. That'd be very interesting.
I mean, yeah, well, that's because we're in kind of a tough spot because Azudu's been hurt. I think it all comes down to injuries, really. If we can get our guys healthy enough, our offensive line situation isn't too bad. I like Azudu. I think he's coming on a little bit. Hamilton, inconsistent, but in general, he's been pretty solid. So, he could fill in at tackle and guard. Glowinski, I like. I think he's a really good run blocking guard. And Neal, I think he's getting better and better as each week goes on. I think he's going to be ready to rock and roll by week 1. I'm not too worried about I'm certainly not worried about our tackle situation. Quite excited about that. My main concern is center. There's really such a lack of depth at center. We saw Holden play snaps at center in week 2 of preseason. He was so bad he couldn't snap the ball properly. So I know we cut him, thank God. But yeah, I mean, it just showed how our lack of depth there was a concern.
We got another comment here from TD. He says, for sure they have to be elite, but I'm not going to go crazy on Neal if the first few weeks. He needs to be adjusted to the speed of the NFL, of course. He looked decent so far. Yeah, look, I think it's going to be very similar to what Andrew Thomas went through. It's going to be kind of that learning curve. If he comes out there week 1 and looks amazing, great, excellent. But if there's some struggles, which are to be expected, that's fine, because Andrew Thomas struggled at first and people were kind of like, oh, we got the worst tackle of the group. And then he turned into that absolute monster that he was the rest of the season and last year. So I think Evan Neal will follow a pretty similar path. We know he's got the skill set to succeed here at the NFL. It's just about being patient, which is, I think, a key word for this team is patience for a lot of these guys. And I think once Neal gets into the flow, he'll be fine. I'm not worried about the tackles. I'm not worried about right guard. I'm not even really worried about the line in general. It's just who's starting and who's starting at left guard and where does Shane Lemieux fit in when he eventually does get healthy.
Blue City Empire Sports. So is it true that Austin Castillo is back with the New York Giants? Do you mean Austin Calitro?
I think he means Calitro.
I think you mean Calitro. Yes, Calitro is back. I think Calitro will be backing up Tay Crowder as our inside linebacker now with Blake Martinez being cut.
Well, thank you for joining us, Blue City Empire Sports. Thank you for the comment. Let's talk about the rest. Let's talk about this defense. We'll talk about the linebackers here because we've touched on it already earlier with the inside linebackers. But if we look at the edge rushers, considered outside linebackers, I guess. Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, Jihad Ward, O'Shane Zimenez, and Tomon Fox. So interesting group there. I will say this right from the get-go. I was surprised Zimenez made it over Quincy Roche, who was back on the practice squad, thankfully.
Yes, I know that friend Alex from Big Blue in the Bronx, very unhappy that Roche didn't make it because he could seal off the run. He can seal off the edge. Zimenez is just a one-trick pony. He's just a pure pass rusher. But I think that Zimenez is a better scheme fit for Wing Martindale. Wing Martindale likes his pure edge rushers. He likes guys that he can just put in a spot where they can just attack the quarterback. And I think that's what got him the nod. I think Zimenez actually had a fairly solid camp, man. I think he outplayed Roche, but I'm not saying that was still the right move because Roche was our second best pass rusher last year, without a question of a doubt. And it was actually one of the few astute moves that Gettleman made last year was to pick up Roche, who I always liked at the Steelers. I think he was a good pickup for the Steelers, and when they surprisingly cut him, I think the Giants did well to get him. And so I'm a little surprised he didn't make it. I know a lot of Giant fan content creators are unhappy about it too, but I think it all comes down to scheme fit. I think Zimenez is more of a scheme fit, just about pure pass rush. Forgetting about that, just to focus on our starters. Obviously, we love Ojulari. I think he's really bulked up in the offseason. He's looking like a tank. And I think he's going to ball out this year. And we got Tibbs on the other side. Hopefully, pray to God, to whoever's up there, that Tibbs is going to be fully healthy by week 1 or week 2. Because that injury was very scary with that cut. And good news, Moss got cut. Screw him.
Yeah. See, there is a silver lining to all this. Hopefully Thibodeau is healthy because we know what he is already. We know he should come in day one and just be really, really good. And for the first time in a while, we're going to have some really good edge rushers on both sides. And the thing with Zimenez, before I get to this comment from TD here, because we got some comments coming in, Zimenez was really good his rookie year. I think he was, I wouldn't want to say really good. He was good. And he got hurt. And he kind of fell off a little bit. He's trying to get back to that form that he was just a few years ago. And he was a 3rd-round pick, and he surprised some people. He was our sack leader, I think, in 2018. So, look, if he can get back to that and just be a pure edge rusher for a blitz-heavy defense, fine. I still won't go away from I think that Roche should have been on this team. I think there is a spot for both of them. But hopefully they'll find a way for Roche. And if Zimenez can get back to that form he was in 2018, then great. We'll have to wait and see. Now, TD says, not sure if you're familiar with him, but since we are talking about the line, what about going out and getting a guy like Darrell Williams? They don't have the money. They just can't afford him. I would love him. He'd be a perfect signing. They just can't. Unless he gets like a league minimum veterans deal and says, yeah, I'll play for free. I don't think we're signing him, unfortunately. But
I mean, obviously, we'd probably need to trade Slayton. Need to renegotiate Leo Williams' contract. I mean, all those things are possible. We can renegotiate some contracts, but you probably don't want to kick the can down the line because I think Shane's all about flexibility moving forward. The thing is, we're going to be semi-competitive this year, but it's all about next year and moving forward in the year after. As I said, as I mentioned at the start of the show, one of the scouts, the prominent scout said that Shane needs about 3 years to turn around the mistakes that Gettleman made.
Yeah, and restructuring contracts was part of that mess. So I don't think that Joe Schoen wants to get into the habit of doing that too much. He'll have to do it to create some money this year, but he doesn't want to continue to do it in order to create more cap situations like Dave Gettleman did. And TD also said primarily as the right tackle and guard. Yeah, I mean, he would be a great signing, don't get me wrong. It's just that they literally can't afford. I'm not thinking he's going to come in and play on a vet minimum deal. That's the only way. If they did, great. If not, it's the money. We talked about it earlier in the show. Unfortunately, Gettleman should be put behind bars for what he did with this cap scenario. But
I mean, it's a war crime what Dave Gettleman did to the Giants, really.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. Big. Sorry, I'm seeing Big Blue in the Bronx is in the comments as well. What's up to Alex? But Blue City Empire Sports says, "Did you guys heard that Joe Schoen was looking at the quarterback CJ Stroud? Yeah,
CJ Stroud, baby,
going to be at the game." He said. So yeah, I mean, look, if the season goes as a lot of people think it will, we'll be in the running for a quarterback in the draft this year. And CJ Stroud is one of the top names early on in the college football season that's going to go into the draft. So expected to go into the draft. He's at the top of the mock draft list.
Yep.
I would be fine with it.
Top 5 pick, 44 touchdowns in 2021. The last time I remember is 44 and 6, 44 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. CJ Stroud. He's probably a top 5 pick. He's certainly someone on my radar. He had over 4,400 yards. I mean, obviously it is Ohio State. Their system does tend to allow some boosted up numbers. but doesn't mean that he can't hack it, man. I think he is legit. But obviously, we have to do our scouting. I'll be having to look at a lot of tape as the year goes on. But trust me, I will be looking at the quarterbacks as the year goes on, especially once the college season really starts ramping up. I'll be watching the quarterbacks coming up in the draft. But I won't discount Daniel Jones. There's a chance that Daniel Jones could surprise me, but I really do think that we'll be looking at the quarterback market.
Yeah,
the draft.
Yeah, I do think this regime wants their own guy. Unless Jones just simply balls out and he leaves them no choice, saying we got to bring you back, I think they'll be in the running for a quarterback, and Stroud is certainly a guy at the top of that list. First of all, it's up to Alex, Big Blue in the Bronx. The other half, I was talking about him earlier, to the Twin Bill, 1/3 of the boys in the Big Apple, and of course, the Giants fan of the Twins, Luca and Alex. So what is up to the boy, Alex? TD says, correct me if I'm wrong, but DJ's in a contract year. Yes, he is. What do you think he'll have to do, or what are your expectations for him to get another deal? Do you expect he's gone? I think he's gone unless he puts up similar numbers to his rookie year and the Giants win games because of him. If the Giants are winning games because of DJ's play, they'll bring him back. If not, they're going to move on.
So I agree. Listen, we just fill in TD. We turned down his fifth-year option. He's going to play out the final year of his deal. He's on a prove-it deal. A lot of things have to happen for him to prove that he should be here long term. Just to put it succinctly, he has to ball out. It could happen. But yeah, as you say, a lot of things have to work out in our favor. We have to be competitive, for one, and we have to win games because of him, too. And he also has to cut down the turnovers, and he also has to prove that he can be a fit in Dable's scheme moving forward. But let's not just overlook the fact that we've got an entirely new A, coaching staff, B, front office. They're going to want their own guy. And I think that's what it really comes down to. They will want their own guy in there. And although I'm just reading between the lines, I'm reading between the tea leaves, they're fairly complimentary of Daniel Jones, but I've noticed a bit of a shift. I think they were really, really going hard on Daniel Jones at the start. They were really boosting him up, when they first got the job. But as the weeks have gone on, the count went on, it's been less certain. He's got a lot to prove. I personally think that even if he's average this year, he's not going to get re-signed. I think a lot has to happen for him to get re-signed because I think it all really comes down to the fact that our front office will want their guy under center. But, Jones has looked okay. He's looked better. I just think that most likely we'll be in the quarterback market.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. Just they will want their own guy. It just happens. That's just how it goes. Even the Jets, at first, people thought they were going to stick with what they had, and then eventually they took Zach Wilson, moved on from Darnold. It's just what happens when a new regime comes in. They usually want their own guy so they can start their full vision with the guy they wanted. So there wasn't that quarterback in this year's draft for them. He wasn't there. I thought Willis would have been a pick because he kept falling, but clearly they didn't want to do that. So maybe this guy is coming up in this draft. Blue City Empire Sports says, really don't like the Ohio State quarterback. They don't usually end well. Yeah, I mean, there's been a pretty bad crop of Ohio State quarterbacks in the past. A lot of them don't really turn out well at the NFL level, but if that was the case, then you just wouldn't draft any Ohio State quarterbacks, and Stroud's done everything right to put his name at the top of that list. So I know there's kind of like that, I guess, that hex on Ohio State quarterbacks in the NFL level, but the last one, who was it? Haskins was the last one that kind of had that.
I don't want to say anything about him.
He needs. It's such a shame. It's such a shame. There wasn't anything wrong with his play. It's just obviously we don't even want to get into that. But
you know what? From what I heard, that he was actually really starting to look like he could be a legit quarterback for the Steelers. It was really very unfortunate what happened to him because he was impressing a lot. He's turning a lot of heads over in Pittsburgh. So, I just think that maybe he was a little raw when he first came into the league. But let's talk about him. To be honest, we can't really talk about Ohio State quarterbacks when the Giants drafted a guy from Duke. Right. And that's a basketball school, so I don't want to hear anything about Ohio State.
Yeah, look, if you just want to overlook a school because of that, you can't when you're in the Giants scenario. They use the 6th overall pick on a Duke quarterback, like you just said. So they kind of have no choice but to look at every possible scenario at quarterback coming into the draft. Assuming they're picking top 5 again, which they very well could be, they're going to have to look at one of these. There's a lot of decent quarterbacks out there. Stroud at the top of that list. Will Levis is a guy that people are looking at. The dude from Florida, Richardson, another guy that people kind of have on their board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Gators fan. I didn't see too much of Richardson last year. I mean, obviously, didn't have a huge sample size. I think he had like 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. I'm going to keep an eye on him this year, though. I think he'll obviously take a step forward. A new coaching staff. I'm not quite sure yet, but yeah, we'll go and get into it. It's very, very early. I don't want to look like I'm giving up on what we currently have. So we'll play it by ear. We'll certainly have a better idea by the first couple of weeks where we're at with the quarterback situation.
Right. Now, we've already touched on the inside linebackers, and we talked about the secondary already. One position or one group left that we have not discussed is defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. So we have Dexter Lawrence, Big Dex, Leonard Williams, Big Cat, who's had 2 really, really good seasons for us since becoming a full-time guy, or full seasons. Justin Ellis, DJ Davidson, and Nick Williams round out the group of defensive linemen. This has got to be our strongest group, I think. We're going to be very good against the run, at least with these guys. You're not going to get too many running backs. We're going to have to because the linebacking core is so thin. But I love Big Cat and Big Dex in the middle of that line.
Yeah. What I saw in camp with them, because I went to one of the practices, I can see a partnership already between the two of them, and I think you're going to get a lot of penetration up the middle, as well as stopping the run. They're going to be penetrating up the middle as well. They'll probably be taking it in turns, and you can see a lot of pressures. Not quite sure about sack numbers just yet, although I wouldn't be surprised if you could get a decent sack number from Leo. But I think the run will be stopped. Ellis is a scheme fit, Martindale kind of guy. DJ Davidson, we'll wait to see what we have with him. I'm excited about the interior line spot. I'm actually happy with the defensive line in general. I think the edge I'm not worried about because Wink Martindale will find ways and ways to create pressure on the quarterback. And you've also now got that internally. When Wink first signed Leo Williams, I was against it, but he's slowly turning me around. And I think if we negotiated a deal with him for him to stick around, I wouldn't totally hate the fact that him and possibly Dexter Lawrence moving forward. Because I think those are people that you can build around once this defensive unit is ready to compete at top level. But I'm excited about this defense, and I'm going to make a prediction. I see this defense beating a good team like a Cowboys, maybe even a Philadelphia on a home game. I can see it, and I think they're going to turn some heads. 1 or 2 games that we're going to win, and it'll be because of Wink Martindale's defense and some of these guys that, as mentioned, in the edge and interior linemen.
Very bold prediction, because that happened last year, right? When we beat Philly, I think, at home.
Yep.
But it might have been a Dallas game as well. But the defense has had a couple of those wins in the last couple of years. So I do think that with Kayvon Thibodeau and Aziz as the edge rushers, I love the defensive line, like you said. I think with Wink's aggressiveness and bringing the blitzes, we will win some games because the defense forces some fumbles, creates some turnovers just by pressure alone. So I do think there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 of those games where we surprise people with the way the defense plays and we win like 14-10 or something like that. One of those low-scoring old school in the trenches kind of game. So I'm excited though about the future of this team, or defensively as well.
Yeah.
All of it's going to rely on the corners. I'm fine with the safeties. I love Julian Love. I love Xavier McKinney. I like all the guys we picked up. It's just we need Aaron Robinson to progress week after week. He needs to be better and better because he's the only real true outside corner that we have right now, aside from Adoree Jackson. So I think if the defense is going to thrive, it's first going to start with the pressure, but you need to cover. You also need to cover people. And Aaron Robinson has the speed to do it. Now he just needs to put it all together and progress at week-by-week basis.
Agreed.
I think we've covered it all. We know the special teams, Graham Gano, Jamie Gillian, we need a new punter, and Casey Kreider is the long snapper. I think we'll get a new punter at some point, but hopefully we get something. Jamie Gillian just pins some in the inside the 5-yard line or something like that. Just don't be Matt Dodge, I guess.
Yeah, I've not been overly impressed by Gillen, but he's been okay. At least he's not been Matt Dodge bad.
Yeah, I don't know if you really can get Matt Dodge bad. My goodness. What a time to be alive for that. That is going to do it for us here at Nerd and Out Sports. I want to thank everyone who popped in. TD, Blue City Empire Sports, Luca, Alex. Thank you guys so much for joining in and talking some Giants football with us. And we will be back very soon to talk about week 1, what we
Please like and subscribe and get it out there.
Do all that stuff. Like, subscribe, share. Thank you once again for joining us. We will see you guys next time. Let's go Giants. Peace out.
Let's go Blue.